It's so funny when a person comes into the space for the first time that's in recovery and they're like terrified. What's going to happen? You know, and we never cared what we were putting in our bodies, you know, for some of us decades, and we're like terrified of like taking a deep breath. Some of us are so afraid of what's going to be found in there. We have this inner healing capacity that is so in our favor. It has a way of bringing up material. There's also a lot of room for incredibly, you know, beautiful, joyful, light-hearted experience. How can I get Bob? Like, he likes the deep shit, so like I'm gonna have to hit him over the 2x4 with some really intense stuff. I'm gonna make him cry like a baby, and then like I'm gonna have to bring him in a little bit, and you know, we'll bring him some like floating in the sunbeams with Jesus.
Hey there, and welcome to the recovery crew here at Deep Waters. I'm Dr. Bob Baer. Our guest this week is Christine Calvert. She is a very talented healer and leader in the world of deep healing and the addiction world. You're going to enjoy this. Deep Waters is a variety of workshops and trainings and groups for folks who are ready to do that deeper work to find that authentic part of ourselves that can recover, heal, and launch into the life that we've longed for. So glad you're with us. You're in the Deep Waters now. Hey there. There are two people on the screen that I like a lot. That's one of the bonuses of this podcast, is I get to hang out with people that are cool and that are on the path, on that real path. So here is Christine Calvert. Finally, we got her on the podcast. I'll do a good little intro of you in a moment. And our co-host, Camille Reed. You guys that have been listening know Camille and all the good energy that she brings to this program and to Deep Waters in general. Welcome, Christine. Welcome, Camille. That was my hello thing.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
All right. So, Camille, why don't you say a little bit about what's going on here at Deep Waters, and then I'll do a little intro of Christine, and we're going to get Christine's story, and we're going to find out some Christine is a unique healer who is doing some of the really deep work that I think you folks will really be interested in. But Camille, why don't you say some things about Deep Waters?
Yes, here at Deep Waters, we are an advanced recovery and healing experience for men and women. The Deep Waters Intensive, or the DWI, which is happening in September, is a 3-day transformational trauma resolution experience that uses psychodrama, bioenergetics, and rituals of empowerment. We also have our next Experiential Facilitators training, which is going to be June 4th and 5th. This workshop is an opportunity for anyone who works with others to do their own inner work and learn action tools to use in groups. Spaces are filling up fast for that one, so if you missed June, you can join us on August 20th and 21st. We're also offering a certification track that includes completion of 4 modules to become a certified experiential facilitator, and you can find more info on that at our website at deepwatersrecovery.com or email us at admin@deepwatersrecovery. If you would like to bring the sustainable trauma resolution into the curriculum of your treatment facility, you can reach out to us to get more information on that as well. Dr. Bob also sees individual clients. He has an outpatient program where you can do couples, family, and individual sessions. And we have weekly blogs that come out on Monday, and then a follow-up podcast that comes out on Fridays. You can follow us, like, share, subscribe to the recovery crew at Deep Waters Recovery. You can also follow Bob on TikTok as the Recovery and Trauma Guy.
Look at Christine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
Why is it so weird for everybody? It's like, it's because everybody else is 18 and I'm old.
Yeah, I always think of the like dancing like acts or something.
Yeah.
Actually, it is very addictive. I don't know, if you get in the right slot of stuff that's interesting, it's like, oh man, that is funny. There's some funny shit on there. All right.
I still don't have one. Seen some good cooking videos.
But I've found a way to like make fun of ourselves as therapists and also do a little bit of teaching, I think. I don't know whether it comes off that way or not, but I'm having fun with it.
Well, good. That's what matters.
Yeah. And that's a little intro to Christine. I said, I'm having fun. She said, that's what matters. That's why we have Christine on the show today. Christine Calvert's a licensed chemical dependency counselor and certified holotropic breathwork facilitator, which I hope we're going to hear quite a bit about. If that just went by you and you were thinking, what WTF was that? It's actually incredibly powerful. If you want to get high without using, I shouldn't say shit like that, but I just said it. So it is one way to get high and transcend trauma. Honestly, Christine and I wouldn't be doing it if we weren't finding some natural way to get high. But that might tell you a little bit about my friend Christine too. But she's also the founder of Tribe, which is a conscious sober living home for men in Austin. A very conscious. I just ran into two of your proteges over there this week, Christine, and we had to tear ourselves away from each other in order to move on with our lives, because we were talking about all of this really cool depth topics, especially around men's work. And I will say, it's not in your bio, but Christine is a huge advocate for men's work, men's empowerment, men's healing work. And that's not always the case. I mean, a lot women have been hurt a lot. It's hard to get on the team of rah men. And Christine has found a way to do her own healing and also be an ally to us men who are trying to find some way to heal this tough guy, fix shit, figure it all out expression of masculinity, which is not working. And so thanks for that. She is currently, she bailed on us here in Central Texas. She is up in Portland working on a doctoral degree in naturopathic medicine. And I hope to hear more about that in the podcast, not too much, because the biology and science shit might put me to sleep. But
I get it.
But we're so glad that you're here, Christine, and this is an opportunity for you to tell your story and maybe weave in some of the magical stuff that you're up to in the world. Welcome.
Thank you, Bob. It's good to be here with you guys. Thanks for doing this work. It's so important. Bob, I've known you for, I guess, quite a few years now, and have just been so honored to get to witness the unfolding of the work you do with so many people. And thank you. Deep bow to you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit about my story. You know, I haven't told this in a while, I'm realizing. But the backstory to all this is, that I started really young, I think, as a lot of us do, with I'll say the spiritual malady had its grip on me, as I came out of the womb. I don't remember a second of my life in childhood where I felt, comfortable or just even okay in my own skin. So it was, felt really challenging from the get-go to just live, to inhabit like this space, to exist. And so as we do, I kind of reach out to attempt to dissolve that. So I, early on, I was utilizing things to try to feel better, whether that was, attention or all these like pretty incredible coping skills that young people learn in order to get these needs met for approval and nurturing and attention, and eventually found substances. I grew up in a home with a mother who struggled with addiction throughout my childhood. And my father was also an addict. So he ended up leaving when I was a baby. So that may be perhaps why I love men's work so much. It's a little bit of an attempt to reconcile some of that. But those are relevant pieces to my story because they were painful. And there was a lot of trauma wrapped up in that experience of being with, a parent who is addicted. And I was very attached to my mom. So, there was a lot of codependency. And kind of enmeshment and stuff like that, which certainly created quite a interesting dynamic, you know, in all my future relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was lucky. You know, I ended up, so I eventually my of choice or no choice was methamphetamine, and you know, it led me to complete and utter demoralization, homelessness, and the lucky part is I got to go to treatment by the time I was 18, and for some reason I said yes to this, and you know, I think the reality for me is that I was just, it wasn't my, I don't know, you know, maybe it wasn't my karma or something to live the rest of my life in active addiction. Because the reality was I had a lot of things working against me. But, you know, hearing the words of, it was Chris Raymer at the time at La Hacienda, about what it meant to be an addict resonated deeply for me. And, you know, I had a profound and quick first step experience. And then I got to start to experience the power of what some people will choose to call God. And
the first step experience for anyone listening who doesn't know this lingo is having an actual sense that I am powerless over using and that my life is a mess, therefore, and I can't change it. Would that be fair to say that that's what a first step experience is?
Absolutely. Yep.
Such that.
Yeah. And yeah. No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, which is the preparation for thinking, you know, maybe there is something out here, no matter what our wounds are about religion and all of whatever, that we get in enough desperation if we do a good first step to say, wait a minute, A, I need help, and B, maybe I can transcend all of my intellectual shit about God to surrender to some version of it. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure we're unpacking what we mean by our lingo.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you. It's even as you talk about it, it hits, you know, because it was powerful. And, you know, the first step for me, that experience continued over and over again, you know, throughout my years of recovery, meaning I continued to be kind of brought to my knees about the truth of addiction, whether that was just my own powerlessness over substances or people or things, circumstances outside of my control. And yeah, you know, it's this God idea was it for me. I mean, I also really connect with what Carl Jung said about addiction, you know, that this is essentially a thirst for wholeness gone awry. And so when I started to experience something that felt like wholeness through spirituality, it felt like, yeah, I wasn't going to give it up, you know, because I feel like that's all I was reaching for anyways, every time I put a substance in my body. And yeah, I mean, the reality though is trauma, when it's woven through our being in certain ways as young people, just because we get sober doesn't mean, you know, that the symptoms of that go away. So, you know, once I got sober, I still had a lot of crap to deal with. You know, I had a lot of dimensions of pain that needed unpacking, and it took some time. It took a lot of time. Even though I was sober, I didn't necessarily want to be, in the sense that I didn't want to feel that pain. Yeah. And so it really took a tribe. It took a village of incredible women and some incredible men to stay pretty tightly circled around me in those first years. And I had some incredible therapists that I got to work with. And, you know, a large part of my story is really investigating and exploring spiritual practice. So, you know, this was 16 years ago now. And so I got sober and at the time they had no such thing as a meditation group. You know, the most meditation that we did was the moment of silence at the beginning of a meeting. And so
that's not enough.
Yeah.
For some it may be. Some of us are sicker than others. I needed a little more than that.
So you
So
started,
me and a couple friends
you started being,
we would drive to Austin.
you started
Yeah,
being,
we'd drive to Austin.
I think we're having a little delay.
Sorry, go ahead.
But I was just saying you were a meditator before meditating was cool.
Yeah, but it was like the secret society. We'd like go to one of our teachers' houses, and it was just like a few of us were like, come watch this spiritual movie and do this meditation. And this is eventually where I was introduced to breathwork. And we'd drive up to Austin where all the hippies were and meditate with them. And I think a lot has changed since then. Meditation we now know is just an incredible resource and a must for a lot of us to take on. And a lot of us need more help than just sitting listening to a YouTube. So, thank goodness for all the groups and communities that have showed up to do more group work with that. But so I studied, yogic tradition, kind of from a Hindu perspective, tried to really understand what spirit had to offer, and that was really beautiful. I studied some earth-based religions, some shamanism, some Native American, methods, and it was a really rich time of exploring consciousness, really. And I was just one of those people who couldn't not do that. I needed some depth in my life if I was going to stay sober.
Yeah.
And holotropic breathwork was a huge part of that. I found that,
Yeah, so this could be the moment where we launch into the explanation of holotropic breathwork and Groff and your buddy Tav, Sparks, all that stuff. This could be the moment, but before we launch there, earlier you referred to the spiritual malady, and I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Maybe I've already talked about it on this podcast. Maybe I'll put poor Camille to sleep with this, but the idea that I've been saying that forever, and 30 years in recovery. The spiritual malady. I've only recently come to understand, and you're probably going to say, you just figured this out, Bob, that really what I'm talking about is my trauma. My trauma has my view of the God or the world or the universe or whatever skewed. And I'm making decisions in my life based on this skewed view of the universe and my place in it. And the work, the breath work that I've done with you, the psychodrama work, the bioenergetic work to get down in the body and cough up these hairballs of trauma or lodged neural pathways that are stuck in me and loosen them up and free them up, I get a clearer view of my life and of the universe and of myself in it. And for me, I think of that as healing my spiritual malady. I said that longer than I meant to say it. Am I in the right region? Do you think in that way about it, or how do you think about spirituality and the malady?
I love that. I think that should be the definition in the book. It's funny you said that, because I did the same thing for many years. I would say that, and then kind of one day I went, what does this really mean for me? And I love how you describe that. I don't know that I'd do it any different. I think there's this sense, I think in the book it says irritable, restless, discontent, right? And that was like fine, but it didn't really do justice to the absolute, kind of tyranny that existed inside of me, and what I was willing to go to quelch that. And so, and it was all wrapped up in all the trauma, all the million and one ways I felt I didn't belong or have, or was worthy of existing, and all the ways I attempted to cope with that, which were pretty, at times demoralizing and tough, and it's funny what we do with this thing is we go from being abused and having all these kind of traumatic experiences done to us, or, and then we start doing it to ourselves, and it just takes one to tango at that point. And so a lot of my spiritual malady too is this narrative, this really incredible narrative that I think was a product of this really talented kind of part of my ego, you know, that would just constantly and relentlessly tear me down.
Yeah. Yeah, the messages that we carry, right, Camille? That's what we work on at the Experiential Facilitator training. That when somebody starts to do their work, we're trying to get the backstory, right? Where's the pain in your body, and what's the message you started telling yourself?
Yeah, and it's something that, I mean, I wish I had learned. I also went to treatment whenever I was 18, and I wish it was something that I had grasped whenever I was first introduced to recovery. You know, all of this deeper work and trying to have a deeper connection with what it looks like for me to be spiritual came much, much later. Because for me, it was something that, you know, I fought for a long time because I was, you know, raised Catholic, and my idea of spirituality was just kind of what I was hearing from other people. And I didn't really give myself permission to explore the deeper things. Like I knew, you know, meditation, like, okay, 5 or 10 minutes, whatever, I'm just going to sit here. But I didn't really allow myself to like be as curious as I am now about seeking out all of those different things.
Yeah.
Well said. One of the things, Christine, that you and I both have had challenges in the addiction industry. I don't know if you would even say that you're in that. I think I'm not really in it. I think they even would say, nah, he's not really in it.
You're a renegade, Bob. You're in it. You're
but just like your buddy Tav, who we lost last year, right?
Yeah.
He was very much, and he liked to stir some people up too by saying there is no place. I actually have a quote here. There is so far no work that bridges traditional recovery and the transpersonal perspective. And I say the same thing. I'm pointing at it, say, what's the matter with this shit, right? And I think we're trying to bring it together in the best way that we can. For me, I think that is using some of the language of recovery and then overlapping it with the language of healing trauma, I think is the way we're going to bring these communities together to do the healing work. It's because, like for Camille, when she came in, I know where you went to meetings. I know that whole thing. They don't know shit about healing trauma. Restless, irritable discontent is as far as we ever got, right?
Yeah, we found, you know, if we try and explain it to the people where we learned, like who like aren't doing it, but we would like to, you know, expose them to it, like we sound a little wacky.
That's right. So Christine has been in this world for a while, having people look down their nose and say, yeah, it's good, but it's not real recovery. Or the therapist people looking down the nose, it's there's too much that 12-step community-based stuff in there. It's not real clinical work. So with that as a teeing you up, Christine, I'd love to hear, maybe you could unpack for our listeners what a couple of these or all of these practices that you have been doing for many years now in helping people heal trauma as part of healing their spiritual malady, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is like, you know, what I feel I will just dedicate the rest of my life to figuring out how to do. You know, I don't think it's there's no easy answer, you know, partially because we're all so incredibly different, and we're at different, you know, we have different needs and we have different nervous systems, and we have different relationships with our desire to heal. And, you know, so yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, there's this, there's so much room to kind of like bridge the gap, you know, from this beautiful 12-step, really foundational need work that's done in AA, for instance, with this kind of deeper clinical work. And, you know, to me, what kind of is the bridge between those is just this thing called evolution, that the whole point of healing is that once we get a foundation, we start to evolve. And if we're actually doing this thing right, like we've done the 12 steps and we've done them right, our shit's going to come up because we've created and laid the foundation for more to mobilize and move and emerge from the psyche. I mean, this is why I love naturopathic medicine, and really what kind of made me fall in love with holotropic breathwork is this idea that we have this, my teachers called it the inner healer, and it's a beautiful, simple term for it. We can fancy it up and call it like this intrinsic wisdom that lives, deep inside each of us, and its goal, its desire is for us to heal. This is not different from like when we cut our finger. There's not a whole lot we have to do except give it the right circumstance to heal. Don't put dirt in it. Don't put, and then it just does its job. And so if we give our psyche the right space, it's kind of a homeopathic way of thinking about it. It's the symptoms will emerge so that they can heal, not because we're not doing it right. And I think in AA early on for me, when I was going through that process, I had this narrative that I wasn't doing it right because I was still struggling with some of these kind of symptoms, if you will, of trauma. And what I came to find out, and Tab Sparks was a huge kind of space holder for me around this, was no, I mean, this stuff's coming up because you're doing the work, because you're doing it right. So there's more room for these deeper aspects to come through because they want to heal. Yep. They want to heal. There's an intrinsic desire for wholeness in you, and that's what's happening here.
And the program,
and Carl Jung,
and you were about to refer to Jung. I think 12-step recovery is the popular manifestation of Jung's philosophies. But even AA is not in any way saying we're trying to heal your trauma. We're just trying to keep you from putting that shit in your body and maybe begin a little bit of a spiritual path. And it says in there several different places, seek outside help, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is sometimes people seek outside help and stop working that program.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, that unique feature of addiction, right? Is like, there's actually a need to stay tethered in some ways and keep our feet on the foundation that we came from. And so you're right. I mean, we see that all the time. And I think we're like loyalists to tradition. So, I mean, thank God AA does that really well. I mean, they do what they do so well. I wouldn't be alive without it. I don't think you guys would be either. From what I understand about your stories. And then there's this piece that somewhere we forget, I forgot it until somebody showed it to me, which is that, the evolution of consciousness will happen if your intention is to heal, and it'll probably happen anyways. So, and that's where a lot of those methods came in, where I was ready finally, because I had the foundation that was given to me through the 12 steps to say, okay, let's do this deeper work. And, holotropic breath work was interesting because when I started that work, I actually became more symptomatic, if you will, like I kind of got more fucked up, and there's like, just more like all the, and everything just became very clear to me. And it started to kind of emerge and heighten as it was trying to move kind of up and out of me.
Yeah. I think I do it for self-protection more than anything else. But whenever I start with a new client, I make sure that I raise the flag of it'll probably get worse before it gets better. I'm not really here to help you feel better at first. And that's kind of the nature of this beast. I mean, right. And especially with the kind of work that you and I do, it's not just sitting in a chair and talking about what happened to me. We are intentionally diving into doing techniques to get into the body where the trauma is frozen and loosening it and allowing the demons to, did I say that out loud? Allowing the demons out, right? I would like you to say just a little bit about what this oddball thing called holotropic breathwork is. Because people hear the word breathwork, they think they know what it is.
Yeah, which is, I mean, breathwork there's so many different types now, and it's kind of a trendy thing, which is great. There's a lot of access to different kind of, groups and things. But holotropic breathwork in particular is a pretty special method because, well, one, it was developed about, I think we're going into like the 6th, maybe even 7th decade. And really, there's nothing new age about it. We've borrowed from a bunch of ancient traditions. Stanislav Grof was this Czech that developed it, and his background was with LSD, and in very therapeutic settings would utilize LSD to heal treatment-resistant trauma and other psychiatric illness. And he was having a lot of success with it, but he came to the US and it got shut down. And so he remembered some things that would go on in people's bodies and in that room. And one of them was they would spontaneously move into this certain breath pattern, and it would propel them back into the experience. And we all know breath has been used, for centuries and centuries to induce expanded states and to heal. And so, he drew on, he's a scientist, so he kind of drew on his, both his medical background and also his incredible background with, different spiritual traditions. He's also quite a mystic in my mind, and brought to us this thing called holotropic breathwork. And it's incredible. We lie down on a mat with our eyes closed. We have a sitter, somebody that's just there to hold space. And then there's facilitators walking around the room. And it's so funny when a person comes into the space for the first time that's in recovery, and they're like terrified of the breath, like what's going to happen, and we never cared what we were putting in our bodies, for some of us decades. And we're like lying in a dark room, just terrified of like taking a deep breath. Yeah. But it so, to me, speaks of the relevance of doing this work, because I think, some of us are so afraid of what's going to be found in there. And what breathwork shows us, I think, is, one, that we have this inner healing capacity that is so in our favor, and is moving us toward what one might call wholeness. And two, it has a way of bringing up material relevant to what we can handle in any given moment. And that doesn't mean it's not hard or scary or uncomfortable. And then next to that, there's also a lot of room for incredibly, beautiful, joyful, light-hearted experience. And I think the inner healer is a really brilliant thing, because, it's like it knows us. Like, okay, how can I get Bob? Like, he likes the deep shit. So like, I'm going to have to hit him over the 2x4 with some really intense stuff. I'm make him cry like a baby. And then like, I'm going to have to bring him in a little bit. And, we'll bring him some like floating in the sunbeams with Jesus, because, he's always like been into that Christ consciousness stuff. And then, it just doesn't, no matter what, like we're always just floored at what people talk about, and I can't pretend to understand it. That would be like pretending to understand consciousness and the psyche. And, it has a very magical, abstract, thing going on. And I think one of the most beautiful things about the way Stan and later Tav Sparks really held this work so with such integrity is the support in the room. Mm-hmm. The support in the room, because as we know, trauma doesn't happen, solo. It happens either because somebody's, we've been, something's been done to us that should not have happened, or we didn't get something we needed from another human. And so the space that's held in there and the support of other humans allows for these things to be reconciled. Yeah. And that's really important.
Wow. Okay. So you said so much stuff that I want to do a whole nother podcast on, but let me see if I can point at a couple of them. One, you just said the inner healing mechanism that is so in our favor. Did you hear that, Camille? Did you catch that? That's like,
yeah, I did.
I had a part of me, I'm not kidding, that says, are you sure? Are you sure my body's not against me? Yeah. And I have the same thought when I think about the universe. I might say there is this universal sense that God that the universe is good and in my favor. And then I have an immediate thought, are you sure? I don't know. So
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I am sure. I'm only sure because I've watched it over and over in my own personal life and with others. But, because I love that. And I have the same narrative. And now I just understand it as the trauma, as the egoic part of my humanity that is like not so certain about this whole thing. And And, it's also, I'll bring in naturopathic medicine because it's my world right now. It's like, this is what I love too. The body is actually also not against us. So much of chronic disease is not the body trying to hurt us. It's actually just trying to return to wholeness after all the things that it's taken on that's created such a deep imbalance. Yeah. So the symptom is an attempt to heal. The body's symptoms that we see and we try to repress all the time with pharmaceuticals and things, this is just the body saying, hey, okay, here's my signal. I'm like an emissary from beyond, from this biochemical world in here saying, hey, we're a little out of balance or a lot out of balance. And so I have to do this to try to restore wholeness.
And I think that's what you're, the folks that hold space in breath work. I think we're holding a space of being this part of the universe that is in our favor. Right. So yeah. I'm laying there, and a couple of things. I know we're about to transition out of this breath work thing, but it's so unique and nobody knows what it is, Christine. I want to stay with it just for a moment here.
I can talk about it forever.
And also for the wild ass guys like me, I want to get out there that there is also tribal pounding, incredibly wild ass music being played, which I don't know. Christine probably doesn't say that to scare off folks, but there's something about that and then it moves into this flowing, beautiful music that takes me down into the release, and that it's very it's been well thought out to rattle loose the trauma and then allow a floating up of the pain to the surface and releasing it. I know this. I'm not a practitioner of it, but I know that's what's up there. I want you to talk about that.
Yeah, that's funny. It's here's the paradox with breathwork. The music is designed very specifically to just it has a certain arc to it, and the idea is that it's dynamic enough that it kind of mimics the full range of human experience, right? And so we have like the intensity and this like primal kind of, just wild side to the intense, this really deep, intense kind of music that there's a lot of room for a lot of things to come up. For some people, it's anxiety and panic. Other people are dancing, having a blast, or some people are crying. We react differently to it. And then, we could be then it kind of moves into this really beautiful kind of soundtrack type music that will hit the full range of human emotion. And some people are, in this joyful, just like huge heart opening, whatever, becoming the consciousness of the ocean. And then other people are like just deep in, sorrowful pain because they're like the archetype of aloneness, and just crying. Some people are just like, taking a nice nap. And then it comes down to this really relaxing, sweet kind of integrative music. And some people can still be kind of going after it. And there's screaming on one side of the room, crying on the other. Other people are in like a, little yogic sleep. Some people are, doing their thing where they're checked out, where they're like in the room and their ego and their mind is chattery because that's what needs to present itself. And that's okay too.
I have another idea that I've been dancing with lately, or actually a phrase called psychic musculature. I think what happens when we go to sleep, our psychic musculature relaxes, and it allows particular material up almost into our consciousness. If we write it down, we can bring it in and analyze the dream. We can bring it into consciousness. I don't think I've ever had an experience, any other experience other than breath work, where I felt like I was in the dream time and actually bringing it up to the surface and being able to do something with it with support. Someone who could actually help me find it in my body, because there is, if you want to, in breath work, you can have, if you feel safe enough, somebody can help you like manipulate the place where the trauma is and try to dislodge it and release it.
Yeah, that's a huge part too, is like, and what's intriguing about that type of body work is what we do is it's the same thing. We're still meeting the inner healer. We're not, this is why I love this work. And to me, it's really important to emphasize this, which is that this is about the inner wisdom, not about the facilitator. Like there's nothing about us that are healers in the space, like the whole premise is that we're creating space for you and your inner healer to do the work. And so when a facilitator comes to do body work, sometimes body work looks like just holding a hand or like holding somebody, when we're dealing with trauma of omission, these things that we didn't get when we were younger, this nurturing presence and these sorts of things. It's so healing for people, especially in these expanded states, to be held. It's very different than being held or hugged in an ordinary state of consciousness. It penetrates deeper in the psychic space. And then, but body work can be intense, like where they're, and what we're doing is we're actually just meeting the person's, we're meeting their body. So we're letting the body do the work and show us, and then we might provide resistance or, whatever it is. But, breath work heals trauma, can heal trauma, because of its foundation around radical self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Because trauma is so disempowering. So if there's any hint of that in the space, like if the facilitators haven't done their own work, if it's not set, the set and setting is so important. And because our job is to create a space where people feel empowered and safe. And hopefully they feel safe enough to feel unsafe, if that makes sense, because then the shit can come up.
Exactly. That's why too much safety
and the healing.
That's why sometimes when we are, those of us have been trained as therapists about how to be very safe, very safe. Don't say anything that might upset somebody. Or, I don't think sometimes we need to have safety is created by creating a space where anything is welcome in this space. If you need to scream, fuck, it's welcome here. You might trigger somebody, but maybe they need to do some work around that. But we'll keep a safe place here for you to let whatever needs to come out. Sometimes clinical work is boxed into this tiny little thing. And I'm telling you, when you box the shadow into a little box about 1 inch big, then you've got an unsafe space. My experience in breath work is I was given the freedom to let my body and my voice and whatever I needed to get out. It was a safe place to take a risk.
Yeah, our motto is "Come as you are," and we mean it. Yeah. And that's not always pretty, And yeah,
it's the same. We have a lot of the guidelines that we use at Deep Waters is take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take big risks. Mm-hmm. It's like the tension of the opposites, right?
Yeah, I love that.
All right, I'm going to let you transition here with a quote because we want to know what naturopathic medicine actually is and how it's got you lit up these days. So here's a quote from your blog, which will be coming out probably when you're listening to this. It's probably going to already be published for folks. So the body, for many of us, is often the last frontier in our healing process. I know this was my story until I found naturopathic medicine, which completed the mind, body, spirit triangle of healing for me. What do you mean by all that?
Yeah, so growing up in my time in the 12 steps, there was this, we talk about mind, body, spirit, that these are, the pillars of recovery. And we do such a good job at mind and spirit. And we do a good job at body, because I think what was actually meant by that in the big book, where it came from, was that when we straighten out mentally, we straighten out physically when we handle our mental and spiritual health, and I think they were referring to the dissolution of the craving. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like they were saying, our body, our desire, that biochemical pull to substances will handle itself when we straighten out mentally and spiritually. So, but here I was, doing all this spiritual, emotional, mental work and healing in some regard. But I had this dissonance with my body, between my body. And how that looked for me was this was 5-6 years in the game, and I had like chronic digestive issues, which, if you've ever had those, that's not a fun way to live. And, I was, I had body dysmorphia. I had, I was like lethargic, really lethargic. And I just, in general, had a really, like, my blood sugar was dysregulated. I mean, I wasn't well in a lot of ways, but there was nobody, I had not created a space yet in my life where that was addressed. And then when I started doing counseling work, I was seeing young people with diabetes and hypertension and high blood pressure and just autoimmune disease and chronic illness that really just didn't seem like it had a place. And I was curious about that, and it intrigued me, because what I started to understand is that our mind and body, we know this, we've been talking about this, but how much have we integrated it, are not separate. And so, I started, like, I studied somatic experiencing and like yoga, and started kind of like looking into body stuff, but it didn't quite like bring it home to me in the way I wanted. And I was, it was kind of curious to me. And so personally, about 10-12 years ago, I went to a natural medicine practitioner. So in Texas, a lot of people don't know what naturopathic doctors are, because it's not a licensed state for naturopathic doctors. There's a few states, or a handful, where NDs, separate from MDs, which are medical doctors, cannot practice as licensed physicians. But here, like in Oregon, they practice as any other doctor. So we have the same biomedical background, for 2 years that medical doctors get. And then the difference where it starts to kind of change is that we learn different methods that are, more natural remedies. So, we might start with herbs and homeopathy first before doing a prescription, which we can do. We can do minor surgery, prescription, those sorts of things. But the idea is that it's based on these principles where it seeks like the root cause of healing, and it treats the whole person. And, it's about doctor as teacher, not healer, not doer, but doctor as teacher. It's this, again, that radical self-empowerment piece. It's about not just treating a symptom, which our whole culture is like addicted to, but instead to like create an environment where we can understand what's really going on at a deeper level.
Another level of empowering our inner healer, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it's my relationship with food and my body and all of this it was just as traumatized as my relationship with emotions and human beings. I mean, this was just as relevant.
Are we moving to you're gonna make me feel my shit around the way I'm eating? And
I did see you get a little squirmy there, Bob. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
We just talked about this yesterday. I think, it's been an issue, like for me, like since I got sober too. And when I'm not dealing like with my emotional things, like I'm either, like binge eating or trying to starve myself, trying to like feel a different way. And then I put something in my body, like I eat something and then I feel horrible for a couple of days. And it's such a cycle for me. It's not substances, but it's still creating like this chemical imbalance. It's like, and I'm putting me in a whirlwind.
Yeah.
I'm in recovery for food addiction and not doing it perfectly. I've gained a lot of added respect for heroin addicts that just cannot stop. I mean, I'm powerless over sugar and flour and quantities. Yeah. And I've had periods of sobriety or abstinence in there. And I felt 10 years younger. The arthritis that's creeping in disappeared. The story after story after story of folks who get off of sugar and flour and quantities and being unconscious about the way that we eat. It's the cure for diabetes. It is a cure. It's not just So there's so much about the food stuff, Christine. Oh my God.
I know. I don't know one person that doesn't have, you know, some sort of relationship like this with food or their body, or, you know, and it's hard because, yeah, my vision for myself and the world, you know, let's just fantasize for a second, is that when we talk about healing, we are also including the body, the physical body. I mean, you've said it, we talk about this all the time, you know, trauma lives in the body. It you know, they say the issues are in the tissues, right? But there's, you know, it took me years to get support in this realm. And it was because the pain was so high. And, you know, I think, it's, you know, there's this part of us that like wants, here we are like spiritually connected. You know, I know so many spiritual teachers, which is fine. You know, it is like, we deserve to be human too. We deserve to be human, but we all, you know, here we are teaching, you know, and then we like go behind the scenes and like deal with our like caffeine and sugar shit, you know, or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if we can acknowledge that so that we can create space for other people to relate, because it's such a hidden aspect of our experience, you know. I mean, when you walk into an AA room, at least it used to be like this, you know. Again, this is not about perfection, but it's just it's in like, oh yeah, here's what we're dealing with. But you know, most of us are smoking or vaping, drinking.
And who's bringing the donuts? Who's bringing
donuts?
The donuts?
Yeah, the donuts, the whole gig, you know. And it's, so that tells me that addicts and alcoholics have a lot of kind of reparation to do in their body to bring it to wholeness. There's nothing, you know, I don't want to say there's anything wrong with these things, because that doesn't make sense either, to shame or put like a wrong sticker on there, because that's not it, you know. We also deserve to have a relationship with food that's fun, so, you know, and enjoyable. So it's, again, it's not about perfection, but it's like, if I'm learning to listen to my heart, my emotional nature, you know, what psyche is bringing to me, I also might want to learn to tune into the physical body. But the thing is, most of us are not trained in this. You can't go to you know, you have to go to a doctor, and oftentimes doctors just say, well, here's a pill to dissolve the anxiety, but we don't actually talk about what it would look like to get to the root cause on a biochemical level, and talk about really natural ways to heal, like how. And then you bring in naturopathic medicine, which is beautiful, because then it allows us to reconcile a relationship with the earth, you know, and says, here's some options that are at everybody's disposal, you know, that can be utilized to heal this part of us.
Yeah, the pharmaceutical companies are, you better watch for people outside your door there. I don't know how much they like you guys. They don't like you guys.
Well, yeah, I know we're trained in pharmaceuticals as well. It's just you know, the principle of naturopathic medicine and allopathic medicine, meaning a regular MD, is first, do no harm. And I think, you know, as naturopaths, we get trained in what that means from a little bit of a different angle. Meaning
you mean the first thing isn't make a profit?
Make a profit, or yeah. Dissolve, you know, and so dissolving the symptom with a pharmaceutical will be useful, or managing a symptom will be useful for a lot of people. But sometimes we get to step back and go, okay, what would that look like to do no harm, by utilizing something more natural first that supports the body's natural ability to heal, and then looking at the determinants of health, like, well, what in their life or about their lifestyle can support their healing. Is it just that they don't have knowledge about diet? Like, a lot of us don't, you know. I spent years learning about nutrition before I could actually like address it within myself, and still am. So yeah, or is it that, you know, they need more stress management, yada, yada, all the stuff we know, but.
Yeah. Well, you could also go into politics, Christine, the way that you just spun that, yes, of course, we're, you know, when pharmaceuticals are necessary, but we want to do no harm. But I do see the little wise ass smile in behind there that knows that it's all just a big shit show that's run by a board of, you know, there's research that shows that almost all of the MDs that are on the decision making committee for the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, that's used by all psychiatrists, have ties to the pharmaceutical company. There is a reason they have there is a financial reason why we want to make a diagnosis that will lead to medicating the symptoms of trauma. I think 90% of the things that are in that manual are actually trauma disguised as anxiety, depression, all these different things that you can give a pill for and sell the pill. It's insidious. Don't get me started.
Yeah, I hear you. And I want to also put the plug in there that, there has to be, I've had to leave room for medication. And so the other part that brought me to naturopathic medicine is watching over and over and over again so many clients be on a massive amount of psychotropics and antidepressant, things that were just not allowing them to exist in the way they wanted to, and unable to get off of them, and not having the support through psychiatrists and other healthcare practitioners to do so. And that's heavy. That's a heavy issue for me. It's like, kind of, yeah, it feels like pharmaceutical cuffs get put on people and they can't get out of them. And I don't want to say it's not a place for medication. I was on medication in my early recovery because I needed to stabilize,
I want to make sure, yes, I do my rant about that, but also there's a place for it. And it's, it leans into that harm reduction conversation. When it's going to keep somebody from dying, I am for it. I don't care whether it's Suboxone or antidepressants or whatever the hell it is. Let's keep them from dying. And also, let's do something about our healing system, where doing the deep healing work is available to everybody. Here's an alternative. Yep, medicate yourself, but here's an opportunity for you to go deep into yourself and become your own healer. It's so, Christine, I think you're stepping up a little bit into the world and taking even more leadership to create spaces where people have alternatives to doing that to themselves, right? Because when we mask our trauma symptoms, which is what we're doing in our addiction, and if a practitioner doesn't know about this healing work, they're going to prescribe something to knock back the symptoms without also prescribing Christine Calvert, who can help you do the actual healing. So, I don't know. I hope we're bringing a little message of clarity around this to folks. Camille's taking deep breaths over there for some reason. What do you think of that?
I just think about, so many people don't know this information, and I think they don't even know where to look or where to begin. And I think it's something that the more that people hear about it and the more relevant it becomes to other people, not only in recovery, but maybe somebody that, does struggle with depression or anxiety or, the body image stuff, all of it, just understanding that there is a root called these things, and you can stay on the medications and still, for me, I was also on medication when I was in early recovery, and I finally got to a point where I was kind of scared by how numb I was feeling. And so I had the discussion with my psychiatrist, and it was I feel like maybe I should taper off of this. I'm missing my emotions a little bit. And I think that's, it's a journey for everybody with what they need, and everybody's different. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing.
At the risk of being saying too much on this podcast, because I really want to hear Christine. I'm going to say this little story, and we may even cut it out. I don't know, but it seems so relevant to this topic. Well, I went to about 15 years ago, halfway through my recovery, I guess. I went to Mexico, and I was looking for Ixtlan, which is, I don't know if anybody has read any Carlos Castaneda, but that's the place where the shaman was from, and I saw it in Mexico. It's in Oaxaca. And so I took this journey. It took forever to get there. And when it was way up in the mountains, and I thought I had found this magical place, Ixtlan. Actually, there's many Ixtlans in Mexico. There's I don't even know what it means. I don't know what it means, but there's a lot of them. It was the wrong one. And I wasn't the first one that had wound up there looking for this, and there was a few laughs. But anyway, I was saying, Cunindera, por favor, or Cunindero. So I was in my limited Spanish. I was saying, is there a medicine person here that I could meet? And they kept pointing over here, and it was like this clinic. It looked like a medical clinic, and it happened to be the day when the medicine person from the tribe, the Zapoteca Indian tribe, came into town. So I walk in the door, and on the left side of this thing is the clinic, right? There's nobody sitting there. On the right side is everybody waiting to get in to see this medicine person. A naturopathic practitioner is what she was. And I got a chance to just talk to her a little bit. She had all of these herbs on the wall that were like, my Spanish wasn't good enough to really understand. But what I'm pointing at is the return to traditional healing methods and trusting that the earth, the mother, is in our corner. And that we're in our corner, and that the universe is in our corner, like you were saying earlier. And let's lean back to that idea. Yeah, I mean, it's not a new idea that you're coming up with here, Christy. You know that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, to me, it's the ancient wisdom, and for whatever reason, we're lucky enough to have this conversation about it. It feels even like way beyond. I mean, I still don't get it, in my like human suit with this egoic like narrative of who I am. It's so hard to grasp it. Like the nature of our existence is that pure and true. Like, it doesn't mean like destruction and like these darker energies don't exist. That exists in nature. I can't tell you how many times when I get really messed up around this idea of like trust, like I lose my trusting vantage and I have to go out in nature to find it again. That's where I find it. And because what I'm reminded of is how imperfect and dynamic this all is. And if we just, that surrender is kind of the potion, or it's the medicine that allows healing to happen. Because then things can start to move and shift and move back into alignment. And we're the ones that get in the way. Like, I'm the one that keeps eating the fucking chocolate, I'm a huge proponent of chocolate, by the way, but I'm the one that keeps doing the things that keep my body from healing and moving toward wholeness. It's not the earth. All I have to do is step on her and she starts to restore me, Yeah.
And she'll pull you back eventually. Can you feel her pulling you right now on your chair?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's like, get off this damn computer.
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually she's going to pull us under.
Yeah.
6 feet.
Back from where we came.
That's right. And this other idea I have is that all of this meditation stuff is about, and getting all the trauma out of the way, is just practice for that great final calming. I'm older than you too, so I think about these things.
I love that.
Hey,
well, I love it. Yeah.
So Christine, anything, I think we're going to transition here pretty soon. Any other things that you want to just poke at, or that you want to say to the world, or did we get to a good chunk of it today?
I mean, I feel like we could all talk for hours.
Yeah.
I could talk to you for hours. So, I might just say the words that were said over and over and over to me by my good friend and teacher, Tab Sparks, was trust yourself. Trust yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the medicine right there.
Thank you. So, we have this little fun thing that we do at the end. We grab a couple of questions and we all answer it. So I'm going to just snag one of these and just for the fun of it. All right. So here's one. You ready?
Yes.
A quote or a bumper sticker or cliche that's meaningful to you. Anybody can go first.
Go, Camille.
Oh, man. Well, I think after this and hearing the trust yourself, mine is shit happens. And I think that's something where I have to think about it every day, because every single day, nothing is perfect. And I have to laugh at myself and stop being so serious about everything. So shit happens and just let it happen.
That's a good one. As funny as I was going to say, shift happens. Have you seen that bumper?
Yeah. We're on the same wavelength here.
Right. This one, it's very, very blasphemous, but I'm going to say it anyway. Jesus, save me from your followers.
Yes.
Oh.
All right. Best concert of all time and why? I'll go first. Billy Joel. I think he's the poet of I could cry about it. The place, all of his songs say the shit that I want to say.
Lucky. That sounds like a good show. You know, I still remember, the Sister Hazel concert. It was probably one of my first concerts, and it was like just the comfort music of my childhood in some ways. Nice. Second to that, I'll say I am a fan of Brandi Carlile, who's a pretty incredible musician, and I've seen her a few times, and always just like a spiritual experience. Yeah,
I have two also. The two concert that I've wept at, one being Elton John, which I ended up at accidentally and walked into it from borrowed tickets, and I ended up right in the front row, and I was by myself too, and I just cried in the crowd. Like, it was such a spiritual experience for me. And then Chris Stapleton, he had one song where he just went full acoustic, and it was just him and his voice in this big theater, and it just moved me, just everything about it. So two very different great people.
Thank you. All right, and here's the last one. We're going to do this. I want you to have a vision of the world the way you want it to be right now. Just kind of see it for a moment. And then we're all going to say our vision out loud, and then just let God go to work on it. We're not going to, and then I'm going to encourage us not to even think about it the rest of the day. Let the universe go to work on it. All right, so I'll start. What would it take for everything to come together in the world such that healing trauma and transcending it and living a life of joy and peace were the normal way of living? All right, I just made all that shit up, but
nice, Bob.
Now I'm letting it go. All right, who's next?
You know, a world where we created so many spaces for people to explore all aspects of themselves, from the dark to the light, everything in between. So the safety to do that. That there was no right or wrong. Yeah.
Nice. I think Rumi said something about that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. He said a lot of things that were just brilliant.
Okay, Camille.
I think it's kind of similar on that same path, Christine, but a world where people can just interact and have a conversation with somebody that they fully disagree with, and still allow a person to be wrong or right, and still just like respect and love them for being a person, and just embrace that agree to disagree thing, and know that we may not agree with each other, but we can still coexist and trust that we're two people.
All right, so we'll put those visions out there. Anybody listening right now, because I believe, I have some experience with it. Visioning is very powerful. Be careful. To hold the vision is to put a vibration into the universe that, I don't know. I'll have to have Christine explain it to me, but somehow we're made of vibration. So vibration has a lot of relevance and power. That'll be the next podcast, Christine. We'll go into that. Yeah. All right, you guys. I don't want to let go, man. I'm having a blast with it.
So we'll do part two, Bob.
We'll do it again. Christine, why don't you let people know how to reach you, so they can, because you've opened up some cans of worms here that people will probably want to know more about. How do people reach you?
Yeah, I think the best way is through email. It's going to be consciousaustin@gmail.com. So CONSCIOUS Austin@gmail. And I'm happy to connect that way. And I do telehealth visits, and then also I'll be back in Austin in the summer doing some breathwork workshops and things. So.
Right. So Christine runs workshops. She sees individual clients. And if you didn't write that down, you can just reach out to us and we will get you in touch with Christine. We consider her part of our team. I don't know if she does, but you're on the team, whether, that's my consciousness. All right, Camille, will you do the short version of what we're up to here at Deep Waters, please?
Yes, short version. We've got the next Experiential Facilitators training, which is June 4th and 5th. If that one's full already, we've got August 20th and 21st. You can find both of those on our website at deepwatersrecovery.com. We also have the certification track to go through that, and email us at admin@deepwatersrecovery, and follow us, like, share, subscribe, all of it.
Yep. Subscribing is a big deal for folks. If you push those buttons, for some reason it's supposed to help us in some way. I'm not exactly sure how, but I'm told that this is true. Okay, so it's been a blast. Thanks, Camille, for your good energy, and Christine for your wisdom, and wow. I could cry about it.
Thank you, guys.
I'm not gonna. Right? Thank you. All right, and and thanks for joining us here at Deep Waters on the Recovery Crew. You're in the deep waters now.